utterance of God is a lamp, whose light is these words. Ye are the fruits of one tree, and the leaves of one branch. Deal ye with another the utmost love and harmony, with friendliness and fellowship. He who is the day star of truth bears me witness. So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. The one true God, he knoweth all things, himself testifieth to the truth of these words. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you so much. So now I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker for today, and just a reminder to please save all your questions until after the talk. Today, our speaker is Mr. Van Gilmer, and his topic is, Can we ever overcome our divisive times? A Baha'i perspective. Mr. Van Gilmer, renowned soloist, composer, and director, is the original organizer and director of the 80-member Bahá'í Gospel Choir that made its first debut appearance before a standing room-only audience in the Ramada Hotel Ballroom during the Second Baha'i World Congress held in New York City in 1992. Since then, he has directed several Baha'i choirs and interfaith choirs, including a 100-member international Baha'i choir that toured Western Europe in 2004. Van produced his first CD from that tour entitled The Bahá'í Gospel Choir Live in Luxembourg. Currently, Mr. Gilmer is the music director of the Bahá'í House of Worship for the North American continent, located in Wilmette, Illinois. He has toured throughout Europe, the United States, and the Caribbean, and has appeared 3 times at Carnegie Hall. Van has been a Baha'i for over 54 years and has served on a variety of Baha'i administrative bodies, including the National Race Unity and National Persian American Affairs Committees. Mr. Gilmer was invited by the Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington, D.C. to direct a 200-voice combined choir for their 26th annual Interfaith Conference held at the Washington Hebrew Congregation in Washington, D.C. He is also the recipient of the Independent Music Awards Best Gospel Song for 2006. In his private life, Van has been involved in civil rights and racial justice movements since 1963, where he sat in at the Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, until his current involvement as a member of Race Awareness in the North Shore, Healing Everyday Racism in Our Schools, and as a board member of Together is Better. And with that, I'll hand it off to Mr. Gilmer.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I was through the faces, and it's so wonderful to see some of you that I haven't seen in a long time. It makes my heart jump. So let me settle in to being here with you. I'm going to, before I share some thoughts, and what I plan to do is really share some personal thoughts, but personal thoughts based on my being a Baha'i, on Baha'i scripture, on why it's important for us to step up now and do what we've all been asked to do, and that is that we become one human family. And that's harder than I ever thought, because we are all so different. And there's so many things we have to think about. There's so many things we have to learn, relearn, because what we learned is not true in our history. So I'll talk some about that, and hopefully we can also share talking to each other before it's over. I'm going to share first, though, and I think I'm going to share it just like it is. Can we ever overcome our divisive times? My answer to that is let's try, and let's start now. I say that because we've been trying. I don't think we've been trying hard enough, but we've been trying, and we've been trying for a long time, and we still have a long way to go. And so I'm going on to the second PowerPoint piece, and I would like to play for you. Oh, I'd like to play you. This is a devotional. If you attended the ABS conference, you may have gotten a piece of this. You may have seen some of it.
If one friend loves another, is it not natural that he should wish to say so?
Hopefully this is going to work.
If one friend loves another, is it not natural?
I'm trying to get the whole thing on there, but I'm going to let it go.
If one friend loves another, is it not natural that he should wish to say so? Though he knows that that friend is aware of his love, does he still not wish to tell him of it?
You don't know, babe, when you hold me and kiss me slowly, it's the sweetest thing. And it don't change if I had it my way.
I won't spend time trying to show it if it won't show. So let's what the video shows is all the things happening not only in America but around the world, and we've, I think, for so long been being prepared for opening up our hearts so that we all become as one. When we look at history and we look at religious history, we know that God has spoken through many of his messengers. And every time he's talked about, we must learn to love. And why does he send another messenger? Because we seem to not have quite gotten it right. We get maybe a step or two closer, but not quite right. In these days, Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Bahá'í Faith, has written several things that talks about what our mission is. And I'm going to now go on, switch back to the PowerPoint, hopefully. He says, "This is the day in which most excellent favors have been poured out upon men, the day in which his most mighty grace hath been infused into all created things. It is incumbent upon all the peoples of the world to reconcile their differences and with perfect unity abide beneath the shadow of the tree of his care and loving kindness." These words written in the late 1800s, and they tell us then, this the day. All right, so that was over 100 years ago, 170 years ago, and we're still trying to figure out how we can make this come true. So these are from the Baha'i writings and from Baha'u'llah himself. Let me go on to now. For those of us who are Baha'is, we've received a recent message from the international governing body of the Baha'is of the world, but it was just to those of us who live in America. And its first line reads, "A moment of historic portent has arrived for your nation." Now, this was written to all Baha'is who reside in America. No matter what your background is, it is to all of us. And it talks about this historic, this moment being a historic portent, and it's arrived here in America, our nation, America, no matter who we are. If we're living in America, it's us. As the conscience of its citizenry has stirred, creating possibilities for, I made the red mark, marked social change. It holds significance not only for the destiny of America, anticipated in the sacred writings, but also for the mission entrusted to our community. These are important words for us to think about. I'm going to stop sharing, and let's talk about this now, this time. So the first quotation was from Baha'u'llah. He said, "This is the day." Okay, all these years have passed. We've been reading that. All of us who are Baha'is have been reading that. This is the day. So what could happen that the Universal House of Justice, again, the governing body of Baha'is all over the world, would decide to write to only us, only the people we see here, and all the other people who are here in America, and say, this is an important time. Letter, July 22nd. July, August, September, October, November. We've had this letter already 4 months. And what are we doing? We can't sit and wait for the next person to speak about this. We've got to figure out, what am I going to do? I've a couple of times to friends and people gathered. I now, after 7 decades, am thinking about, what will my great grandchildren say in November of whatever that year is? Will they say, look at all of us, look at what they did. Look at what they did to make these words become real. And when I say the words become real, we all know who have said that we are Baha'is. We know that men and women, are equal. We know that we should not discriminate against any person, no matter what their color, their culture, their country, their shape, their size, and on. Now that's what we accepted. All of us who are Baha'is and who are looking at this know that that's what we accepted. I didn't accept to only be with Black people of America. If you're from any other country, you didn't accept that you would only be from your country and that would be your first love. And it's more difficult when you're here in America to think about what it is we will have to change. It has been unbelievable to me how much I learned as a child that was a lie. The history of America is not what you're learning. If you're from another country and you become an American citizen, you learn some stuff that was not true, that you had to know. But those of us living here, worse. We lived not knowing that our history has not been told correctly. And so those of us who are Baha'is, wherever we are beginning to think about, what can I do? I can no longer sit and feel like things are just fine. They might be just fine in your house. Are they fine in your neighborhood? Are they fine in your city, your state? Certainly they're not fine in America. And that's why I wanted to show that first video, which for some reason won't show. But it just goes through all the things that we've seen. Things like in this year, the year we're in. Think about this. Who would have thought we could see a Black American man with no gun, no threat, his head on the asphalt pavement, the street, with another man's knee on his neck. And he's saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. He's calling out his mother. And we're watching for 8 minutes and 47 seconds him struggle if he could and be killed. Now, I've gone to movies all my life and seen people take out guns and shoot people. I know that's just false. I see that happening. I read about it happening all over the country, different places. Somebody gets shot. But here, for all of us to see, is another look at something that is inhuman. We watched another Black man killed by the administration, by the establishment. And had he been doing something really wrong and he had a gun and he was running away, and yeah, maybe. That's not what happened. Now, that happens all the time, but here's one time we saw it. One time we actually saw it. And I think that has shaken all of us when you think about it. Suppose that was a relative of yours. So this is a very important moment for us, a very important time for us. And all of you who are here are making an effort, even right now, to put up with me for a little bit while I talk to you about something that we must do. And it goes beyond reading scripture. Reading scripture is wonderful. Look at what we just read. This is the day in which God's most excellent favors have poured out upon men. It talks about getting rid of all of our differences, not calling our differences what make us important. And when I say that, I'm saying to you, not that Black people are more important than white people. Nobody's important more than another group. So we have work to do, and I'll return to a view graph here. What must we do? Well, first we have to understand that there is a problem. That's not easy for everybody. Understand then examine ourselves first. And a lot of times we say that's somebody else. That's being done by somebody else. That's not us. That's not me. And then develop a personal action plan. As I thought about it, I started making my plan. I'm in my plan right now. But start with something that you can do, not something that somebody else can do. Something that is so big that it would be impossible for you to get it done. Something small. How about calling somebody different that you haven't talked? Not a good old friend I call every day. Somebody different. Somebody that is very different from me, from you. And just say hello. I was thinking about it. I said, I don't know how you've been doing. I haven't seen you. I just wanted to say hello. That's all. How you doing? That sounds kind of simple. But let's see. Is that one? Then see how that worked. Review how. Did it work? Did you mess up? Can you try another strategy? If so, then be determined to do it better. What can I do to make this work? Those are rather simple, but very hard, very, very hard. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, and right now I'm home alone. I wouldn't go out. It's not a time that I generally think I'll be alone. But the day before, 3 people who I have met in the past 2 years called me. One said, "I'll see you in the morning." You see me in the morning? I was wondering, what is that? Another asked, "Van, we were thinking about you, and we wondered what you're doing for Thanksgiving. Could I bring you dinner?" And I thought, oh, it's really so sweet, so sweet. But no, you don't have to do that. No. And the person insisted, "No, I want to bring dinner to you. It won't be out of the way. It won't, we'll have plenty. I'll just bring it to your door and hand it to you." A third person called and said, "Van, I'm baking tomorrow. I'm going to have an apple pie. I'm going to have pumpkin pie, cookies." And she said, "I love to bake. I'll bring you dessert." Or that was Tuesday. I'm feeling, what? This has never happened to me. This is actually, in all these 77 years, never happened to me. And I'm wondering, well, okay. So yesterday morning, first is delivered a big thing of soup and homemade bread, a loaf of homemade bread. So I put that out. And I decided, since it was in the morning, now this is a person, and I'm going to give some detail. It is a person who is white. It's a man. Left his family just briefly to come and give me something he had made himself. Then I knew I was going to get dinner. I didn't know what it was going to be. I get a call later. I'll have it there by 5. I'll have it there by 5:45 again. And then I know the person is here, and I go to the door, and it was a lady and her son. And they brought a full meal, and it was not in a plate. It was a little pot of this, a little pot of this, a leg and thigh of a turkey, dressing. I said, what? So I lined that up. Then it's time for the next thing to come, the desserts. And why am I spending my time telling this? Because I don't know if they have done this with other people, but they were reaching out to me. And when I say reaching out to me, are you reaching out to somebody? Who? Not just a family member. We always kind of reach out to each other, don't we? How about somebody who you think might appreciate it? So what did that do for me? I felt very special. Very special. Because I had not known these 3 people from these 3 families until almost 2 years ago, but mostly one in this year. And they thought enough to do something different. And I don't say that none of you have done that. I'm just giving you this example of what happened to me and what my reaction to it was. Those are the kind of little things. None of them said to me, you know, I believe that we're all one human family. Not a one said that to me. Not a one said, you know, I love you so much. Sweetie. They did that. But what they did went right to my heart. And what we do has to go right to somebody else's heart. They're not suspicious. They're not suspicious that you brought them food because you want something. They're not doing it because if we do this for you, maybe we can get you to do something for us. None of those were the reasons. So think about the first words. This is the day in which God's most excellent favors have poured out upon men. We must get rid of our differences. Let me go back to my How about this? This comes from that same letter from the Universal House of Justice, international governing body of the Baha'is of the world, written the 22nd of July of 2020. The power to transform the world is affected by love. Love originating from with the divine. Love ablaze among the members of a community. Love ignited by the word of God is disseminated by enkindled souls, listen to this, through intimate conversations that create new susceptibilities in human hearts, open minds to moral persuasion, and loosen the hold of biased norms and social systems so that they can gradually take on a new form in keeping with the requirements of humanity's age of maturity. You are channels for this divine love. You are channels for this divine love. You are channels for this divine love. Let it flow through you to all who cross your path. Let it flow through you to all who cross your path. Infuse it into every neighborhood and social space. Move to build capacity. There can be no rest. There can be no rest until the destined outcome is achieved. God. to those of us who are Baha'is, we already have that message. But it's to all of us. We have to share this message. We have to share this message with our friends. We have to share the message with people we meet. I told you stories about things happening in this pandemic. Let's don't blame the pandemic for our not being able to connect with people. Look how we can see each other here. Wow, I can't believe that I can see Carol, the Zandiers. I can't even believe it. But Reva, the Adriances, I can't believe that we couldn't see each other just regularly. Look what has happened to us. It's unbelievable that we can be together like this. So we do have to take some action. We can't just sit and wait for next week for the next one. Well, who's the speaker next week? Ooh, I hope they're good. We've got to figure out how we're going to do something, how we're going to act, how we're going to make our own plan. Simple plan. Simple plan. Something you know you can do. Now, I'm telling you that, but I'm beginning to do that myself. People thank me for one thing or another, and I said, you know, I've got to thank people more. That sounds rather simple, but do you know how much it means when somebody else actually thanks you for doing something that you thought was just regular? And they said, I'm just so glad you did this for me. It was just so wonderful. I really appreciate it. That's rather simple, but it does take some doing. Derek Polk, I see you. I haven't seen him in a long, long time. He used to come to my house for my devotionals. I'm just trying, I'm just looking through. My God, so many faces, so many people. What a bounty. What a bounty this is. So we must do something. We must not silently sit and hope things will just work out. And if we think about whatever our religion is, we've never been taught to just sit and smile and say, I love you. We've been taught that we must disregard that somebody is very different from me. And that's kind of hard when you think about it, because we have cultural things. I was in a study circle this morning that I had to rush out of to come here. But we were talking about how it has been, oh, excuse me, golly, who would have thought a phone would ring? But we were talking about how we could be really very separate. You know, if I went to my family reunion, you know what I would see? Many, many beautiful, smiling, loving Black people. They're my family. This is 2020. You heard I demonstrated in Greensboro, North Carolina. I sat at the lunch counter at the Woolworths. It was scary. I was just 17, 18 years old. And my parents didn't want me to do that. Our parents didn't want us to do that because it had been so comfortable. Not great, but comfortable being in a Black community, just doing what we were told we would have to do, not be with anybody white, not be with anybody. Couldn't go to any of the lunch counters downtown. Barely could find a bathroom because there were only a couple of stores downtown with bathrooms that Black people could go to. That's the way it was when I was 17 to 18 years old. Going downtown to sit at a lunch counter was scary. I was doing something we were not supposed to do. We were breaking the law. We did it over and over again. We had mass gatherings like you see today. Only those gatherings were all Black people and a few white people. A few white people who dared to join us. None of us had any clue what would happen after that. None of us. We didn't know what was going to happen. I was jailed over and over again. You know, we'd just go back uptown, wait in line. They'd say, "We don't serve you." We'd still stand there, and then the police could arrest us. So it was just a go in and go out. And then they started holding us for 3 days, for 5 days. And where could they hold all these students from North Carolina A&T State University? That's where the bulk of those mass sit-ins were in Greensboro. They had to eventually put us in places like the polio hospital. We had found the cure to polio, so these hospitals, this one hospital in Greensboro was just empty. It had been abandoned practically. Well, they used it as a jail. Another place they used was the armory. That's federal place. We're in the armory, and you know what an armory looks? It's like a big gymnasium. So in there 2 to 3 days, they issued a blanket. You put the blanket down on a hardwood floor, and that's your place. You sleep there. I just had no clue that going through all that would result in a day that nobody else has to do that. Nobody else in America has to be denied being able to sit at lunch, eat, be denied going to a restaurant, be denied going to a theater, sitting and having to sit in the floor of it, being denied walking freely on the streets. All that was supposed to have gone away. And so when I give you that example of joy, it's almost ridiculous to think that a Black man today can't walk on the streets of America. How about those of us who are on here now who are Black males? If we just open it up, one of them would say, yeah, when I go out, a police car, I've been stopped so many times. It's a standard story. I was telling a white friend that actually yesterday, and he said, well, you know what? When I was young, we used to, if I got stopped by the police, I could pay him and get off. I said, what? Pay him and get off? Oh, we never thought of doing anything like that. And that wouldn't have worked anyway. It was a bounty to stop a Black person. So in my bag, in my luggage, is all this stuff. It's stuff I haven't told for a long, long time, because I make other people nervous when I tell the story. They say, oh, not me. That didn't happen to you, did it? Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, you know, I wouldn't have done it. And if I talk too much more about it, I'll tell, you know, I've had to deal with crying. But oh, I'm so sorry. So let's think. Let's think about our communities. Let's just think about where you are now. Your Baha'i community, your neighborhood, your city. How can we make a difference? If we believe that we must love each other, how can we make a difference? It's important for all of us to think about. It's important for me to think about. Those of you who are Baha'i, you know that there's a passage in our writings that talks about Black people and white people in America. It says, white people have a patronizing, sometimes patronizing feeling towards the Black man. The subconscious, not kind of not, a subconscious feeling of superiority. Try not to take that on if you're white, or if you're perceived to be white. Try not to be patronizing. Try not to show your superiority that you think you have. But this is the piece for me. Forget the past. That's hard. Don't be suspicious. Ooh. If you had something happen to you over and over and over again, how do you not be suspicious? These are hard things that we're asked to do. Those of us who are Baha'is are asked to do. All of us are asked to do it. We know that after we read this new message from Baha'u'llah and from his son Abdul Baha and his great grandson Shoghi Effendi, they've laid out for us what we must do. And now we have to figure out how we're going to do it. Now, I know I need to close out. Let me share one more thing. Oh, where is it? Here it is. Let's share one more thing. I'm not sure if you saw the program for the Day of the Covenant, a very important day to Baha'is in that it looks at the son of the founder of the Baha'i Faith, as well as it establishes that there's a covenant that God has made with man. And this ended that program. It's I'd be able to show it. Well, let's don't worry about it. I'll tell you the words. If you desire with all your heart friendship with every race on earth, your thought, spiritual and positive, will spread. It will become the desire of others, growing stronger and stronger until it reaches the minds of all men. Let me just say it one more time. If you desire with all your heart friendship with every race on earth, your thought, spiritual and positive, will spread. It will become the desire of others, growing stronger and stronger until it reaches the minds of all men. Those are words of Abdul Baha. I'm going to close. Maybe I could, because there's more closing to the program. Maybe I can unplug and sing a song for you. Let's see.
That would be great. Thank you.
Oh, thou compassion, Lord, thou art generous and able. We are servants of thine, sheltered beneath thy providence. Oh, how compassionate, Lord, Thou art generous and able. We are servants of thine, sheltered beneath thy providence. Cast thy glance of favor upon us. Give light to our eyes. Give hearing to our ears and understanding and love to our hearts. Understanding and love. Understanding and love. Understanding and love. And understanding and love. To our hearts, to our hearts.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing those moving, experiences and words, and they really spoke to my heart, and I think to everyone else's as well. Yeah, so we'd love to have, some time right now for some questions and answers.
Sure.
And so if anyone has a question, please put it in the chat and I'll read it out loud and Mr. Gilmer can answer. So our first question is from Philip, and he asks, how did the police treat all of you?
They weren't kind. In those days, they didn't have to be. It was. It was. I don't know. They were doing. They were mad. They were mad that we were breaking the law, and that's what it would be called. Breaking the law, and so. They were just doing a job, and it wasn't a whole lot of chance for us to do anything but do what they wanted us to do. We were nonviolent. That was one of the main things about the civil rights movement of that time, was that we had to be nonviolent. So that meant no matter what they called you, no matter what they do to you, you had to just act like it was okay. Is my picture moving anymore? Am I still black screen?
Still black screen, yeah.
All right. I don't know what to do about that.
Okay, we can just, yeah. Okay, so thanks for answering that. Okay, our next question is from Armin. How and when did you become a Baha'i?
I became a Baha'i just at the end these sit-ins. I became a Baha'i in 1964. And it was 1962 and 1963 that I was involved in the sit-in movements. It was regular involvement. It meant I'm in college, so I missed exams. I had to go back incomplete from my record. So it was I was young fellow actually, and can you imagine that you're 17 or 18 and you're trying to do this work. The police and everybody is against you, and your parents are afraid you'll be killed. So they don't want you to participate either. And at the time, in the city of Greensboro, the police and the mayor only wanted to deal with the president of the NAACP, an older Black man whose feelings at that time weren't that youth should be out there breaking the law, demonstrating and carrying on. Nobody practically supporting us. So it was, and then as I said, we didn't know what we were doing it for. I mean, we knew we wanted things to be open, but we just had no clue what to expect when it ended, if it would end. That I probably answered that question.
Yes. The next question is from Roswitha from Germany. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly.
Oh, Roswitha. Hello, Roswitha. You see how we can be together all over the world?
Yes, it's great. So she asks, in what way would it be right to react to your stories of the past as white people? You said you didn't want to talk about it because it made people nervous, but isn't it normal that we have emotional reactions? Shouldn't we?
Yeah, I'll tell you what is difficult about this is normally that reaction is, oh, do you have to, why are you telling this to me? I wasn't a part of it. I'd had nothing to do with that. And it feels like the person is saying, from my point of view, it feels like can't you talk about something else? Why are you talking about this? Those of you who are Persian, suppose you could never mention persecution of Baha'is in Iran. Suppose you could never say anything about that. Wouldn't that be painful? When it's your mother, your father, your grandfather, your friends. So it has, for those who were involved in it, a kind of personal feeling for what our struggle was in order to be only a piece of the way after all these years. I'm talking about 55 years ago. No, we don't have to try to go into a restaurant. Mostly we don't have to, but there are clubs. There are clubs that are designated white only. It's written differently. They wouldn't say, oh, only white people can come in here. But in order for you to be able to go in there, you almost have to be white. So, thinking about where we are today, very little is solved. And I think that's why we're having a discussion like this, to raise our awareness that isn't as wonderful as we thought it was. But we is, and we could play like it is by saying, we're one human family. The one thing that you learn if you're not Black is you don't say to Black people, I don't see color. And that's something a lot of people who are not Black love to say. Oh, you know, I don't see color. Another popular one is, I love everybody. I love everybody. And yet doing something that indicates to the person you're telling it, you don't love everybody. In one of my meetings here, one of the persons in there said, you know, I love everybody. I don't see color. And the person, who also happened not to be a Baha'i, said to the person, well, you don't know black, you don't know Van is black? I said, well, I didn't mean it like that. And then we get real sensitive, and maybe I'm going to cry because you'd call me out. So you see, there's a lot of things we have to personally work on. Personally work on. That was a long answer to that question. I'm sorry.
That makes sense. Yeah. Our next question is from Daniel. Is the Hindu caste system in conflict with our oneness, or is it better understood the way Baha'u'llah described diversity as different parts of a beautiful garden?
Well, it's certainly the diversity. Diversity brings us together. The beauty of a garden of many different colored flowers is beautiful. If we were all the same, it would be so monotonous. If everything was the same color, it would be so monotonous. So which for our being able to unite almost despite how different we look, how different what we have is from each other, what country we come from. All of those things colonize us. If you listen to any folk now who are talking about all being the same, the beauty is our diversity. So
the next question is from Dawn and Stephanie. They said, I was 10 when we moved to Louisiana. The darkness was palpable. I was 10. I have great feelings about this time and these experiences. However, these were not happening to me, but I was watching them. How can I be anything but white? What would a Black person want from me?
you know, I don't know, and I'm just going to answer personally, because I have no feeling about how all Black people, just like you wouldn't be able to answer for all white or all Persian people, but I'll tell you about. I'll try to make a quick story about how I became a Baha'i. This was in Greensboro, North Carolina. We were segregated. So I didn't know any white people. But the Baha'i community in Greensboro, North Carolina, was predominantly white, old. And somehow I became known enough to be asked to sing for the Baha'is. So I eventually sang for the Baha'is. But I also got to meet who those people are in Greensboro, North Carolina, who are white, older Baha'is. And you know what I remember about them right now? I remember right now how loving they were to me at a time when nobody white was loving to nobody Black practically. And I heard the message, the message from Baha'u'llah was, we are one. We are one spirit and our soul. And we might look differently, but we're one. And so here I was fighting for equality in America. And here was this little white community of Baha'is with a couple of Black people. And they obviously wanted me to know more about them. And what I learned about them was that they believe that there's not a difference in us because of our color. We're all human beings. And that was impressive. At a time that white people don't say anything to black people, where we couldn't even be together. And here was a little community in the South who were trying to live up to the words of its teachings received from Baha'u'llah, that we are all one. And so they were trying to do that, but trying to do that in ways other than physical. I could feel the love. I could feel the warmth. And that's something we'll have to practice. Feeling the love. It's not to act like, it's not to act like I like it. It's to do the things. Like the story I told you about the folk who brought the food. Who does that? Who would even think to do that? They said more to me doing that than somebody sitting in my room saying, I love everybody.
Thank you. Next question is from Rambod. Sometimes Baha'is promoting love for all the races may adopt a colorblind attitude that is criticized by people doing anti-racist work. What advice along these lines can you give to Baha'is working for the unity of mankind?
Well, first of all, don't be colorblind. I think what is beautiful is that you do see how different we are. And if anything, you wonder, how could I be? I'm looking at this video settings. Am I still not on?
No, still black.
Yeah, I am black. Oh, let's see. Okay, let me go back. I can't see anything I could do to come back to you. But to be able to more honor each other for who we are. And really see the differences and appreciate them. For so long, Black people in America, if you were a woman, the standard was straight hair. So women straightened their hair. As they became more and more aware, they stopped straightening their hair and wore it more natural. But that hasn't gone away. Look at and I'm now into intimate conversation. Look at Black women who have wigs that are straight hair. You see how this just pours on and on and on into our presence. And we don't see it. So one of the first things I said was that we have to look at ourselves first. Don't think everybody else has to change. Think you have to change. Not everybody else has to come just like me. But there's some things that I'll have to do to be able to make you feel very comfortable around me. So I've got to like being around you. That's what this doesn't provide us with. This Zoom meeting, we can only see each other, but we're not in each other's presence. And how would we act if we were? Would we be in groups that are mostly Black or groups that are mostly white? or groups that are mostly Persian, or groups that are mostly whatever. I could go on and on. If we find ourselves in those groups, better think about doing something. Because those are the deep individual things that have to be done. And I'm not telling you because I'm doing it. I'm telling you because I'm realizing more and more I have to do things like this. Now, I live in a community that is a white community. And this area has a lot of challenges because everywhere north of where the Bahá'í House of Worship sits in Wilmette, Illinois, north of Chicago, everything in the north practically is white and affluent. And so it's very hard for it to be a mixed neighborhood of people. So I belong to a group called Healing Everyday Racism in Our Schools. And it's a group of people, almost all white, who are concerned that our children are having no exposure to people different from themselves. And then when you look at it, you say, well, where are they going to get the children? Because there are almost no children of color in the north side of Chicago. So that takes a lot of thinking. It's not just something you can automatically fix. If it was, I think we might have mastered this by now. But it's hard, and we haven't mastered it. So I belong to another group called Race Awareness in the North Shore. It again is a group of white people mostly who have decided they need to do something about the way their communities look and about how inclusive they feel to people who are not represented in their communities. So see, this is everywhere. Think about where you live now. We generally live where people are most like us. And it's not bad. It's just that when you happen to live where people around you are most like you, you probably have no chance to be able to be with people of color, whoever they are. So and if it were easy, we'd have fixed this a long time ago. If it were easy, but it's very hard, very, very hard. So we're calling on us going all the way down to the heartstring to see what can I do as an individual. One of the things I think I'm doing here in the North Shore is I'm often the only Black face in the group. But I won't drop out because I think they need to have a Black face in the group. I think that it's wonderful that it's a white group doing it. In the old days, it was Black groups doing things like this. So, you know, there's progress. It's just very, 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 very slow, very slow.
Well, thank you. I think we'll close off the questions there in the interest of time, but thank you so much again to Mr. Gilmer for really sharing such a moving talk and sharing your experiences that, you know, we don't get to hear about every day. So thank you so much.
And hey, Don Camp. I'm just seeing somebody everywhere now and then. So wonderful to be with you. And I thank you for inviting me. And there's no way I would have been able to be with you had somebody not thought of inviting me to come there.
Yes, thank you so much. We were so happy to have you. So I'll announce our speaker for next week now. Our speaker next week will be Dr. Elena Mustakova, and her topic is Can Spirituality Help Mental Health and Depression, a Baha'i Perspective? And again, these talks occur every Saturday at noon Eastern time. So if you would like to be on our mailing list and you are not, please fill out our contact form that I've put in the chat, and I'll put it again right now in the chat for you. Now we're going to close with another song featuring Mr. Gilmer. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next Saturday.